Good evening, everyone. My name is Cliff Kahili. I'm city manager, and I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. You filled up every chair, so we are very happy that the word got out and y'all braved the weather to come and provide input on these two projects. We have a fairly robust presentation. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of engineering in this. At times we may say things that are hard to understand. Do not leave here until you understand what is going on. We have several options available to present tonight, and we want to make sure we get your input. So it's very important to us that you understand exactly what we're proposing on these options and provide that feedback. We will go through a process of surveying everyone after the meeting. And there's an option to fill that survey out tonight, or you can take it home. We are also recording this public meeting tonight. So we'll have a camera on this microphone, and then we'll have a camera on that microphone. So if you have a question, we're going to ask you to fill out a card and come to the microphone. But we just wanted to let you know that you will be on camera and that these videos will be posted online for the people who were not able to come tonight to be able to see the presentation. So if you're not comfortable getting up in front of the group and asking a question, all of the staff will be here after the meeting, and we have cards. Please feel free to reach out and ask us any questions. If you go back and talk to your neighbors and come up with 10 more questions, we are going to answer all 10 of those questions. Again, our goal tonight is to make sure you have a good understanding of the options on two different projects, and you can provide the necessary feedback so that the city council can make a decision here soon on the design of these roadways. Please make sure that you've signed in. We want to make sure that we have a good record of the number of people who are here tonight. We will also use that to get in contact with anyone should there be something further that we need to provide information on. Before I turn this over to our staff tonight, I do want to introduce our city council who are here. We have Mayor Stan Pickett, Councilmember Dan Alleman, Councilmember Robert Miklos, wave back there, Councilmember Tandy Burrows, and Bruce Archer. Thank you, Bruce. Sorry, I knew you were there. And did Mr. Noche make it in yet? Mr. Noche is on his way. We also will have Commissioner Teresa Daniel here tonight as well. She's running a little bit late as well. But again, our format tonight is we're presenting this. There are two projects, so we're going to present this in two different sections. So starting off, we're going to go with the Town East project, and so all of our presentation will be focused on that. We'll stop, we'll have a break, feel free to ask questions, and then we'll move on to the Skyline section. One last thing, we will have just a designated amount of time for questions. I'm sure there could be 2 hours of questions just on one project. So we will try to stop that so we can make sure we get the other presentation in. But like I said, the staff is well fed and they are prepared to stay as long as y'all are tonight. So again, I truly appreciate the time tonight. It is vitally important for us as city staff to hear from the public. We can only infer so much from our conversations with a few members of the public on how we design roadways, design parks, and design our city. So each of you here tonight are taking a vital step in the future of our community, and we thank you for being here. And now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Matt Holzappel, our Public Works Director. And again, thank you for being here.
Wow. I'm very excited. My name is Matt Holzappel. We've got a great crowd here. Thank you so much for braving the weather. It's kind of nasty out there, but you came here to participate in the democracy of this city. We do have a lot of city staff here. Our engineering staff showed up in force. It is vitally important to get your opinion here. let me kind of just go over the purpose of our public meeting, if I may. We're here to present information and to brief you citizens on options for the two projects. As our city manager mentioned, it's Town East Boulevard from US 80 to Skyline Boulevard. That's the section that is not under construction. The southern section from Skyline South to Military is currently under construction. The displays for Town East are over on this side, and we're going to handle that first in our meeting. The Skyline project will be discussed second, and all the displays are over on this side of the room. So we've done this deliberately so we don't get confused on which displays we're looking at and which options we're looking at. We're also here to answer questions. As Cliff mentioned, we're going to try and have a presentation for about 30 minutes or so, and then we'll have somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 minutes of comments and questions from you all. And then we're going to take a short break, 5-minute break to use bathrooms, or those that aren't interested in the Skyline project, if you need to go home, you can. And then we'll launch on the Skyline Boulevard project. The main reason we're here is we have options. We don't have any preconceived which one we're going to build. Okay, I'm a citizen of Mesquite. I've lived here 35 years. I intend on living here another 35. I've got my own ideas, but I'm not going to tell you those tonight. You know, you can call me if you want my opinion, but we're here to hear your ideas. We're here to get input from you. What are your preferences? Like most things, we're going to present options, and there's going to be trade-offs on these options. There's certain things we can do with one option that we can't do with others, and it has implications, pros and cons. So we're going to present those pros and cons to you on both of these projects. Our public input process, as you're probably aware, you're all here, so you've been part of that. We've mailed notices to 1,100 people, basically everybody in these neighborhoods from Town East Boulevard all the way over to South Parkway. Lots of homes got it. We had a few return in the mail, but it's been only a minor number of them, so it appears that most of you've got it. We had signs and message boards up. We've had information on your utility newsletter, the mainstream in Mesquite, our website, Facebook, Twitter, for those of you that are into that. I'm not on Twitter, but a lot of people are. So the council really wants to get the message out because it's very important to council. It's very important to staff to hear from you. This is just some of the information that is on our website and that's been out there. Everything that you're going to see tonight is on the city website. We have a separate web page for the Town East project and another web page for the Skyline project. We're also going to take the information that we collect from the surveys that you turn in, and we're going to post that on there. Our council and our staff has a goal of full transparency. We want you to have the information so you can make an informed decision, okay? If your neighbors, if you hear things from neighbors that doesn't match what you're hearing tonight, point them to the website, because one of the things we run into constantly is rumors get started. Well, they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and a rumor mill starts, and it may not be what's actually being discussed. So you guys are going to be the keepers and the people that transmit the actual information out to your neighborhoods. You can tell your neighbors, I went to the public meeting, and by the way, here's the website links where you can do some research yourself, but this is what I found out at the meeting, this is what I found out on the website. So you are agents for change, you're agents to get the real message out there, the real information, and to do away with rumors that sometimes get started out there. The schedule that we're going to have, we have this public meeting today. As Cliff mentioned, you will have surveys handed to you as you leave today where you can actually vote on the various options for both Town East and Skyline. You're going to be given a stamped, self-addressed envelope to get it back to us. We're also going to mail out those same surveys to everybody in this neighborhood again. We'll mail 1,100 surveys out to all the homes in this area. We're also putting the survey on our website, and that will be available at 9 o'clock tonight. They're going to pop that survey up after these meetings are over. So once we get all those surveys, we're going to have a deadline, and you might want to write this down, of March 23rd to get the surveys back to the city. So that gives you roughly a month, a good 3 weeks to get the survey, consider the options, talk about it with your family, your neighbors, and vote on an option and get that information back to the city. Because then the staff has to collect that information, and we're going to present it to our city council. They're the decision makers. So we're going to take the information that we get from you and your preferences and the number of people that have certain preferences. We're going to catalog and give them that analysis, and then they're going to make the decision on which design we pursue on both the Town East and the Skyline project. We'll probably go back to the council sometime in April. It may be the first or second meeting in April. And the city council will also, I'm sure, solicit citizen input at that council meeting when we present them the survey and the information. So there'll be another opportunity and venue for you to give information and your opinions to our city council. Okay, let's start on the Town East Boulevard project. We chose to start with the Town East Boulevard project since it's the largest and longest of the two projects. Also, funding's already been identified and appropriated mostly for the Town East Boulevard project from Skyline North to US 80. And so it's going to be built first. We're going to discuss this project in two segments because there's different characteristics with different parts of the road. The first segment is US 80 to Forney. And then the second segment is Forney Road to Skyline Drive. Now, on both of these options, we were going to build a heavy-duty concrete pavement. The reason we're here is because the pavement on Forney and Skyline is in bad shape. It's failing. They were built a long time ago. The pavement thickness is, I know on Town East Boulevard, it's 7 inches thick, and it's reinforced with just a minimal amount of steel. The minimum will come back is 13-inch thick pavement, thicker subgrade, more reinforcing steel, and higher strength concrete in both Skyline and Town East. So all options that we're presenting will have a much heavier duty pavement to withstand the truck traffic that's we're experiencing out there that is causing this pavement to fail. Let's talk about the differences on the two sections that we're talking about. This is a kind of a location map. You can see from Forney North, we don't have any residential homes, Forney Road North. It's all commercial. We got industrial on one side, we got commercial kind of truck stops and things of that nature on the east side of the roadway. No residential land use whatsoever. Also, our traffic volumes in that section are much heavier. And we're going to go into traffic volumes and lane counts and things of that nature. On the southern section, the land use changes. Obviously, south of Forney to Skyline Drive on the north and east side of Town East Boulevard, we've got residential land uses. That's where you people are coming from, those 1,100 homes that are affected by this roadway. On the other side of the roadway, we have an industrial land use. Talking about the schedule for Town East Boulevard, once we decide these things, in March to September, we're going to design it. We intend to bid this project October to December. It takes about a 3-month process to comply with the state bidding regulations. And then we're going to start construction hopefully in February of 19. It's going to take roughly a year and a half to finish it. So we anticipate finishing construction in summer of 2020. Okay, segment 1. North of Forney Road. This is one segment we're really not giving you many options because it is all industrial. This segment we have quite a bit of traffic. We've done traffic impact analysis for both Skyline Boulevard and Town East Boulevard. So we looked at what our traffic counts are in the past, historical counts, what are they today, and what are we projecting into the future as all this vacant land and vacant buildings. As you know, there's a big building that used to be the Lucent AT&T building at the corner of Skyline and Town East Boulevard. It's vacant. It's a big building. What happens when someone moves in there? What if it's a manufacturing? So we've looked at all those vacant tracts and figured out there's what we call a highway capacity manual that we look at in order to calculate with different land uses and different acreages of different types of land uses, what sort of traffic those are going to generate. We've calculated that for both Skyline and Town East Boulevard to come up with a future projected. And all this land builds out, what sort of traffic are we going to be seeing on these roadways? Rule of thumb right now, and it varies a little bit because of speeds and things like that, but each lane of traffic can generally handle about 6,000 vehicles a day. Now, it varies on the mix of trucks, how fast, what the speed limits are on those roadways, and how well intersections are very, very important because most of you know that when the congestion happens at the intersections. It's not so much at the roadway traveling between intersections, but it's at the intersections. But if you remember that, 6,000 vehicles a day, roughly, per each lane. Now, on this northern section of roadway, we have a constraint. We have a 100-foot wide right-of-way. There's only so much we can do with 100 feet, how many lanes we can put in, sidewalks, medians, things of that nature. We have a traffic volume today of around 16,400 vehicles. Pretty heavy traffic count. We're projecting that to go up in the future to as many as 20,100 vehicles. So you can see there's roughly a 4,000 to 5,000 vehicle increase that we're projecting as these other tracks develop out and start adding load to our roadway. Because of that, we think we really need 6 lanes in that section. Let me go. I think all of you have seen this display over here on the walls. I'm going to kind of focus a little bit on this actual cross section. You can see this is what we're proposing for this section. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because we think this is really the only viable section from Forney up to US 80 to get those trucks out of the Union Pacific Intermodal Facility and to provide the correct number of lanes for those traffic volumes I just mentioned. So basically, this would give us a sidewalk on one side, a little bit wider trail on the industrial side. If you remember the bridge over US 80 on Town East Boulevard, the sidewalk is on the west side of the roadway. There's no sidewalk at all on the east side, so we have to move the sidewalk to that side to get over US 80. And providing a median for left turn lanes and basically just to carry the traffic. Segment 2. This is where we have some options that we want you to pay close attention to that we're going to offer up to you. This is a section from Forney, as I mentioned, down to Skyline. We have the residential land use there. As you recall, traffic drops down considerably. Our traffic counts right now is 12,600 vehicles a day in this section, and that's closer to Forney. So that's kind of, traffic seems to pick up more and more as you head north towards US 80. It starts picking up traffic from the residential neighborhood and starts peaking as you go north. But right south of Forney Road, we have that 12,600. So you can see there's a 4,000 vehicle per day difference north of Forney versus south of Forney. Mainly that traffic coming out of the intermodal and those other facilities. In 2040, future projections is 15,100 vehicles, okay? The constraints here, we're still dealing with this 100-foot wide right-of-way. We have lower traffic volumes, but we have this dichotomy. We have residential land use on one side, the east side, north side. We have the industrial land use on the west-south side. So the options we have, we're going to have option A. Remember those options. This option is to do something a little bit different than what's out there now. Right now we have 3 lanes in each direction, 6 lanes total. You saw that on that previous cross section. This option would be to reduce that lane count, 1 lane in each direction. So you'd have 2 lanes on either side of a median. What we would do with that extra room that we're getting from eliminating those 2 extra lanes is we'd take the roadway and shove it as far away from the residential homes as we possibly can, shoving it towards that industrial land. This would have some pros and some cons, and you can see this. Number 1, it moves those heavy trucks away from the homes. That reduces vibration, and we have gotten lots of complaints about vibration and noise, especially from that first and second tier homes closest to Town East Boulevard. We've had to go out there with sound meters, and what we have found is just a matter of 10 feet makes a big difference on sound, okay? So it would dramatically reduce the vibration and noise. It gives us room also to put some amenities in there. We would propose to put in a 12-foot trail next to the homes. Gives us room for some nice landscaping, some trees. We could meander the trail in and out of the landscaping and trees to provide a nice amenity to that neighborhood. There's another thing that it would probably do. Traffic, when it has wide open, lots of lanes to go, it tends to drive faster. You see that in your own neighborhoods. When there's lots of cars parked along the side of the road, you drive in your neighborhood, you only got one lane, what do? You kind of, ooh, this is tight. I'm going to slow down a little bit here, okay? It's a natural inclination of drivers. As you reduce lane counts, drivers tend to drive slower. There's lots of literature on it, and we think it would reduce the overall speeds we have out there. We have a bad enforcement. We have complaints also on this roadway, Town East, presently for speed, people going over the posted speed limit, and it happens a lot. The only way we can fix that is constant enforcement, which we're not able to do. We do put officers out there. We put radar trailers out there. You've seen them out there. It slows them down for a time, but you don't, because the roadway is wide, it's straight, they're just going to naturally speed up as soon as that radar trailer, as soon as that police officer is off the road. Designing roads for slower speeds means you really need fewer lanes and make it look a little bit tighter so people are a little bit less comfortable driving that section of roadway. Of course, dropping a few lanes, it's a little bit lower cost. So as taxpayers, I'm a taxpayer here too, it saves the taxpayers a little bit money. So looking at this, again, this is the display. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but we have blow-ups over here. I'm going to focus in on just this cross section. You can see here, this is this Plan A. All these options, both this one and the next one we'll present to you, which is basically build it back like it is. We're going to build a concrete embossed screening wall along the residential. Now, these are, you think in concrete, but these are newer type where they paint them, and if you've been up to like Academy Sporting Goods, behind the Academy Sporting Goods, they've built an 8-foot tall, not a 6-foot tall like the current fences. It's an 8-foot tall, thick, it's about 5 to 6 inches thick, screening wall. It has a stone appearance embossed on it. It's painted. It looks very aesthetically pleasing, and it's almost bulletproof. And that would be built with either option on Town East along the residential homes. So that's a given. But this option also gives us room for a large buffer. It moves from 10 foot, the roadway from 10 foot away from the property line to, you can see, 28 foot. So it almost triples that distance between the homes and their property line and the actual roadway. And because it goes from 10 foot to 28 foot, we have room for plenty of landscaping, heavily landscaped. We have room for a trail, and it has those other advantages. Let's go on to segment 2. This is option B. This is basically build it back the way it is. Of course, we'll build it back thicker pavement. We're still going to put up the concrete screening wall on this option, so those are common to both. But for those who want to go fast and just are only concerned about moving traffic, this is an option. It has more lanes, so obviously we are going to move traffic faster and we'll be able to move more traffic. We don't think we need it, but for those of you who are concerned with that, this is the option. Disadvantages, as I mentioned, is kind of the opposite of option A. It does put, it keeps the roadway close to the homes. They still are going to have to put up with the vibration, the noise, less pedestrian safety because the sidewalks are very close to the pavement. Doesn't give us room for landscaping. We will, of course, sod the area between sidewalk and the property line and the screening wall. We'll put in nice Bermuda sod and so forth, but there's not going to be room for trees or things of that nature. We do anticipate this is going to give us higher speeds on that roadway, which is an advantage if you want to move traffic, but some people don't want those. We do have lots of complaints on speeding, and it has a higher cost, okay? This is the option, again, showing what that looks like. These options, because we're limited with a 100-foot right-of-way, we can do one or the other. We can move the road if we eliminate lanes and it gives us that extra room, or we can build basically what we have, okay? And with that, I think I did that pretty quick, yeah. So we'll have more time for public input. That's what we're here for. What we'd like you to do, we're going to take this time to cue up people at the mics. What we'd like to do is people that want to speak at the mics, if you'd come up and kind of, Corey, if you could kind of help us with this. If you'd line up at the mic, you'll notice we do have a URL here. With the information, there's separate websites. If you'd copy that down, it is on the flyers as well. We're going to ask you to kind of limit your comments to be succinct and concise in what you're trying to say so that we can hear from everybody that wants to speak. Now, these comments are just related to the Town East project at this point. They're not related to the Skyline Boulevard project. We will have a time after that presentation for that as well. We ask that when you come up to the podium that you state your name and address. For the record, as it was mentioned, this is being video recorded out there. And again, if you keep your comments brief and concise so that we can get everybody's comments. Okay. With that, go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you so much for having us. My name is Willie Brown. My address is 1405 Oxford Place. I live in the Castle Ridge addition. Been there since 85, so somewhere around 33 years also. My question to you is, first of all, can you re-verify in each of those proposals, a sound barrier wall will be in both of those options?
Okay, there's been a lot of talk about a sound wall. Screening walls and sound walls are not the same. Okay. We're going to be building an 8-foot tall screening walls. If you see the sound walls that are being built like along LBJ Freeway, right now north of like La Prada Drive, as you drive north on LBJ Freeway, TxDOT is building very tall sound walls. Sound walls typically have to be individually designed per neighborhood. They tend to be 12, 14-foot tall and higher, and they don't work very well if they have penetrations. We got a lot of penetrations because we have streets that have to go through that wall. And sound is just like water. It flows around things like that. So what we're intending to build with all these options is a screening wall. It'll be taller. Right now the fence that's out there, it's wooden. Right. It's got brick pilasters. Right. It's kind of, right. It's not a very durable construction. We're going to take all that down.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to build an 8-foot tall, so it's 2 foot taller than what's currently there. It's going to be concrete, nice looking, very durable material. Like I said, it literally is almost bulletproof for handguns. And it will have some sound attenuation. Right. Okay, don't get me wrong, it will attenuate sound somewhat, but it's not specifically designed for that. We actually have run numbers on a sound wall. If we actually built something like that tall, it adds about $1 million to the project. It goes from about a $300,000 screening wall to close to $1 million or more sound wall. And again, we've never built, and we don't think it's really going to be effective because of the number of streets that go through that wall. Well, that's good question, Doug. Great question.
That's excellent, because that, from a parent standpoint, I think that we definitely need some type of improvement from that standpoint. Okay, along those same lines, on that same street, there's an entryway for Bradford. It's the first entryway from the Castle Ridge addition. My question to you is, with the road improvements, will that road continue into the neighborhood, which is Bradford, given amount of feet? Because that entryway is in a disaster as well, going into the Castle Ridge addition. The reason why I'm saying that is, on Town East Boulevard, there's maybe 3 entryways into our neighborhood community. Again, Castle Ridge, and then if you got that barrier, the field in between the next neighborhood, where there's not a retainer wall or a sound wall or anything like that in that neighborhood, right. There's only maybe 3 entryway, and I'm interested about when Town East is repaired, will it go into the neighborhood somewhat and also make that area more presentable?
All the approaches for those entry streets into the neighborhood will be reconstructed. Typically, we go 50, 60. We look at the pavement and see how far.
Right.
We have to have good pavement to tie into.
Right.
So we generally go in a distance. And now, I can't say if it's going to be 100 foot or 60 foot, but generally the entire approach where the radiuses are, that will all be reconstructed, and we'll go to some degree within the neighborhood so we get sound. We're connecting into sound pavement out there. There's also talk. Our council right now is very interested in neighborhood identity. So more than likely on this screening wall, what we will do is we'll put name plaques out there identifying what neighborhoods. You mentioned your Castle Ridge neighborhood. That's
Right.
the name of the subdivision. We can design custom name plates that go on that
Right.
entry feature. So when someone comes to visit, you can tell them what street you're on, turn on, Bradford, it'll say Castle Ridge neighborhood on the wall right there. And so we want to give the neighborhood some identity. We've done that on other screening wall projects.
And one last thing, can you verify me? You said that the start date was is that 2019, a year away, or can you verify? You said that there were some discussions about getting, the proposal finalized and so forth, but I want to make sure I understood that for our start date.
Correct. We're not finished with the design.
Jeez.
We've done a lot of design on the utilities, underground stuff, drainage, underground stuff. So we've collected a lot of survey information, taken soil borings and so forth, but we haven't finished the design. So we're at the point we have to have your input, and we have to have direction from City Council on which of these design options to finalize their design. So we think we'll be finalized with that sometime in October, November, go into our bidding process, which takes about 3 months. Hopefully have contracts awarded and executed so we can start construction in January of 19. It's going to take roughly a year to year and a half. So the road will be under construction all of 2019, and part of 2020 till we get it finished, sir.
I sure thought we were further along. So we're still about a year out before start. Now,
Yes, sir.
the grade level you mentioned about the concrete. Now, you mentioned heavy duty, but can you expand on what we consider, blacktop, concrete? Is it graded for heavy equipment? And again, aren't there grade levels? Because again, that road gets constantly tore up. I've been there for 33 years, and I've seen it. I've seen it immaculate to where it is now. We're just doing patchwork.
Yeah.
We're at wit's end over in the neighborhood.
It's in bad shape, and this weather we've had the last couple of weeks has made it even worse.
Thank you.
The concrete that's going in will be 4,000 PSI. That probably doesn't mean a lot, but it's a heavy strength concrete. It will be heavily reinforced with reinforcing steel. When we rebuilt Forney Road going into the intermodal, we put in 13-inch thick concrete there, and it was designed for heavy loads, these industrial loads for fully loaded tractor-trailer rigs, and a heavy vehicle count on those tractor-trailer rigs. It's our intention, just like the section that's underway right now under construction south of Skyline, that's going in 13 inches thick as well with a subgrade prepared under it. So we feel it will hold up this industrial traffic that we're experiencing out there.
My name is Brad Shelton. I'm at 1409 Springbrook down the street here since 1971.
Great.
You've made it clear that one option is more expensive than the other. Can you tell us how much difference we're talking about?
I could look that up. It's not all that much because we're adding the trail on one option versus 2 lanes of concrete. It's roughly, I think the numbers we looked at, it was something around $1 million or so, something in that neighborhood. We're Town East Boulevard, the current estimates we have right now is around, again, depends on option, but it's right around $15 million for the roadway.
All right, so we're looking at 7-8% difference?
Something in that neighborhood, yes, sir.
My concern is that, the money is well spent. We have a lot of roads in this city that need attention, and well, that's it for now. Thank you.
Very good, sir. Thank you for your input. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Rose Grimsley, 1713 Woodlawn Parkway, here in the Skyline area. I've lived here 3 years. My question and concern is that I hear you talking about A and B, and one is a little more expensive and one isn't. But with the growth in the area and the focus on trying to get more industry here, is it realistic to narrow a roadway that's going to lead into our industrial area? And also, are you going to be back in 10 or 15 years saying, oops, we've got to expand this now because of the amount of traffic? Because more industry means more citizens. Thank you.
I'll answer that. We did conduct, as I mentioned, a traffic impact analysis. So we're looking at trends on the roadway past. We looked at traffic counts all the way back from 1999 through the present day. Then we've calculated the amount of traffic, the various undeveloped or vacant land uses, like that big building at the corner of Skyline and Town East. If those become operators, if that vacant building gets an industry or a manufacturing facility in there. We've looked at all the vacant land uses either under construction or that are vacant and projected what those would generate. And it does add traffic, and we've calculated, but even with that traffic in this section, I gave the numbers previously, but we believe that we still can handle it. Here's the numbers for Segment 2. Right now, 2017, we have 12,600 vehicles a day. And we also looked at peak counts and things during the congested peak rush hours. And we think that's going to, with the additional land uses, go up to around 15,100 vehicles. So there will be an increase. There's no question there'll be an increase. However, we do think that 15,100 can easily be accommodated on a 4-lane road, especially if we get the intersections right. If you examine closely the options, the long scrolls on the walls for each option, you'll notice at the intersections, we add lanes there so that there's right turn lanes, left turn lanes, things of that nature, so we can move. We add additional lanes at those congested areas. And the key to getting the traffic through this road and preventing congestion is the intersections.
Thank you. I just think that, to me, it doesn't seem reasonable to take and make something smaller when you're growing. And the projections sound great, but that's just a concern of mine, and I just wanted to bring it up for other people to think about too. Thank you.
That's a great comment.
Hi, my name is Gavin Newman, 2313 Monticello Drive. I was born there, so it's been there for a while. I mean, I'm really encouraged by what I'm seeing here in terms of fewer lanes, actually. One of the things that I worry about is not whether or not the city has the money to build it now, but whether or not the city has the money to maintain it in 20 years or beyond, or whenever there's a bond package and they need to do something. So I think it's really encouraging to see, again, options with fewer lanes. I was going to ask, has there been any economic analysis that looks at maintenance costs and time and overtime, and are you looking at that in relation to each of those options in terms of what does a 6-lane road cost over time versus a 4-lane road? And I guess there's another point too. Your traffic analysis, I know, can take into account what's happening now, but just for us all to think about, we don't know what cars are going to do in 10 years. I hope to not have a car in 10 years, and I hope it drives me. And so I don't know if that's something y'all are thinking about, or if that's something that you can even plan for at this point. But what I really like to know is, what do these things cost over time, and can we expect to pay for them in 20 years?
We do actually have an engineer here, Christina Hickey. We actually have set up a new division in Public Works for asset management, where we look at just that question. Now, we don't break it down to an individual roadway, but of course, every lane mile of roadway has a cost to maintain. Building more lanes than you need has, like you say, a long-term economic consequence. Right-sizing roads is really important, not overbuilding, because it does add with time. I don't have those numbers on what it costs per lane mile, but that is a factor that we have, and we know every lane mile costs money, not just to build, but for the length of its life. Absolutely, sir. And you kind of mentioned what the future brings. We're kind of in a weird place right now. The world's changing. People my age have a tough time grasping it, but self-driving cars are just around the corner. So there's some of them on the road right now. I just had a seminar that in Dallas right now, there are self-driving cars right now on the road. You don't know it because they're experimental, but they're here right now. That may change the way we view transportation. We know that manufacturing, a lot of this area is industrial that we're talking about. Manufacturing uses use less and less people because of automation. That Lucent factory, when it was in full bore, had over 3,000 employees at one time. It was a 24/7 operation with lots of people, lots of parking out there. We've talked to industrial users, manufacturing companies, and the highest, when the total count that they're talking about adding into that building is 1,200 employees if they build all phases. Now, we don't know if that's going to happen, but we see lower and lower, it takes fewer and fewer employees nowadays to manufacture widgets, and we think that trend's going to continue. I can't see it turning around any place. So
Yeah.
they're waving me on to hurry up here. So thank you so much. Very good points.
Very
Yes, sir.
quickly then, Johnny Yates, 1425 Oxford Place. I do want to thank you for the amount of planning you guys and your team have done. It's very apparent. As we look at the mall and the planning that's gone into it, particularly the detail of what traffic flow will be like, but not only that, but the aesthetic side of it, the part where we live, the parks, the linear parks, those improvements are major improvements to our neighborhoods, to every one of us. And I know me as a citizen here and everyone else here, thank you. Thank you for keeping us in mind with that. On a note, though, as we begin to look at this and the construction starts, I know you've mapped it out in a long term of roughly a year and 9 months.
Right.
As we look at that, and hopefully by going to a lesser lane and quantity detail, we have the capacity to expedite schedules, to have continuous work schedules with little to no downtime, where we've got dead roads out there with construction, traffic barriers all over the place with nobody working on it. That is a frustrating feature that we see everywhere in the city, Mesquite included. As all this continues and the work on this goes, whether it's Town East or Skyline, construction goes up, barriers go up, traffic's rerouted, half of it's closed, traffic is pushed, people are frustrated. When all this
Absolutely.
happens, people start bailing and rushing through neighborhoods. It creates safety hazards to all of us. One thing that we would ask you guys to do is cooperate, work with the City of Mesquite Police, bring this to attention, and to have extra enforcement available, or a little bit more than construction zone. Bring awareness. Kids play in the streets, and it's going to get worse.
I think those are excellent points. Our council's initiated a program. You've probably seen the bumper stickers. Drive like
you live here.
like you live here, like your kids live here. Okay,
That's right.
And so they're very aware of that. We have those sorts of complaints during construction projects all the time. We are on the hotline to our police enforcement unit, and they are very, very responsive to us. We have a whole speed enforcement unit in our police department, and they cooperate with the engineering and traffic engineering division intimately because we dispatch them almost every day, one location or another.
One last comment, and back to Willie's comment on the screen wall. While it is not a sound attenuation wall, an 8-foot screen wall does help.
Absolutely.
Definitely does. The one thing we would ask for special attention to be put to, though, is the design of that wall, the proper piers that go into it, so that the expansive soils that we have, that we deal with on a daily basis, that wall doesn't become a victim of it.
The walls that we're building now, I think if you drive around town, I can tell you there's one on Cartwright Road, just to the, let me get this, east of LBJ Freeway on the north side of the road. We've just reconstructed it. It's a very nice looking wall, aesthetically pleasing, and like I said, we've actually had cars crash into that wall in the last year, and it stopped them dead. So it did damage the wall. We had to replace a panel, but it stopped the car. So they're pretty stout walls, sir.
Very good. Thank you very much.
By the way, I might mention that we do intend on putting the traffic impact analysis on our website as well. So if you're interested on traffic counts, they're pretty technical documents, but if you're willing to wade into it, or if you want to sit down with me or our traffic engineer, we're glad to do that. We want to get you all the information you can get to make an informed decision. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Sean Eller, Pecan Bend, 3632 Colby Circle. 21-year resident. The concerns that I have is I watched my entire area between Skyline and Town East go from nothing but the rail yard traffic to being developed into all the warehouses that's brought in all the other traffic. And the big building you were talking about on Skyline has transferred into 3 or 4 different facilities, and I think now at this time is dormant and being used by UPS and the trucking company, or the vehicles, I think. But like you said, once that takes action, that's going to bring in all that other traffic over there. Any future business coming in along Town East, I foresee being more warehousing or facilities that are going to bring in more trucking.
Yes, sir.
And I hope that Mesquite stays a non-truck stop city, because, you know, overnight staying truck stop city like we've pushed out over the last years. But if that becomes an issue, that'll be a whole different issue, a whole different ball of wax. But as far as the construction, you and I spoke about it, and I don't see any reason that this doesn't turn out to be a beautiful thing. But I know nobody's probably thought about it, but if you could put it in your thoughts about maybe posting that all commercial vehicles right lane only, because everything they do up Town East or up Skyline is going to be a right-hand turn only.
Yep.
Except for where they need to turn in the intersection. And that would limit excessive damage to the outside lanes for future. And also allow open traffic to whatever lanes are open on the outside, which I agree with the other guy.
We'll look at that. That's not
about leaving it full. We might as well go ahead and do it all big now instead of waiting, because it's going to have to be done later. It will have to be done later.
We'll definitely, that's an interesting idea. We'll put that on your survey, and we'll definitely look at what we can do with signage and enforcement in that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Hello, my name is Mandy Starks, and I live on 1316 Meadowcrest Drive, and I'm also a teacher here at Rugel.
Oh.
Yes. And I am requesting that possibly, we have a park right there on Forney that is not utilized as much, because it's really hard to get to for parents that have strollers that want to walk to there. It's very hard. So I would ask that you keep that in mind when you are creating the walkway, that make it better, kid-friendly, stroller-friendly for people to get to. And the playground equipment that is there, it may not be part of it, but it is for younger kids, which is great, but maybe add in some older kids where it can be a place that all families can go to. And I have a little leadership club here at Rugel Elementary, and we would like to see if possibly we could help design the trailway and maybe have a say-so into it. Into helping with the ideas. So.
Make sure you leave us your name. I want to point out, if you look at the Town East one, the plan, I guess it's A, option A, with the wider trail along the residential. If you look at that thing, we're bringing a trail through that Town East Forney Park there, and that trail is going to be extended all the way to the parking lot that's kind of on down near the South Parkway end. And that trail will be wide, 12-foot wide, is what our thoughts are right now, and it should be good for both walking, people with strollers, wagons, bicycles, things of that nature. So it's meant to be an amenity to the park and to connect you to that park facility that's out there.
I don't think it's utilized as much as it
Our city manager, before he became city manager, is was the Director of Parks and Recreation. So parks are near and dear to his heart. So we
So-
will make sure that connection's made.
So who do I talk to about my leadership club helping? Is that you? That you? Okay, what's your name?
Cleve
I'll find
Kahili.
you. I promise.
Just
Okay,
put it
thank you.
when we hand out the surveys at the end of this, there's a place on the end of the survey for your comments. Just write it in there, and we'll make sure Cliff gets your information, and
Julie
we
is
incorporate.
part of my leadership club, so I
That's
had to
awesome.
ask. Thank you.
That's awesome. Do we have any others, sir? You have a few more minutes here. We're coming up on 7:50.
My name is Larry Casal. I live at 1309 Golden Grove. I've been here about 30 years or so. This is a great project. It's been long in coming. But I'm more concerned about what happens between now and the time the construction starts. And I'm very disappointed. I'm very concerned about the condition of the repairs being made in the interim. And, I keep a close eye on the distance between Golden Grove and Town East. On 80. And I see the patchwork guys out there. I see the concrete guys out there. I see the stuff continue to deteriorate. The concrete, you don't have a good base for the concrete, so I think you pretty much stopped trying to make concrete repairs. The asphalt repairs don't seem to be a consideration as far as the drivability. They'll put a pillow of asphalt that is not tapered. I see places in the various past where they have actually paid attention to how the car approaches, gets on, and gets off of a patch. And they'll feather the edges. They'll keep the thing low. But more recently, it looks like they're throwing a cow patty down. There's I can show many areas where they seem to halfway do the job. And if they had gone just a little bit further, if they spent a little bit more time, for the consideration of the drivers. And I have had conversations with the guys doing repairs out there. I've had all sorts of excuses, that, maybe they ran out of asphalt. We're just here to cover up the rebar. We're not concerned about how well the car rolls over it. But you go down Town East right now, and the pickup truck is bouncing all over the road. I've got 3 vehicles. 2 of them are performance vehicles, and one of them's a pickup truck. And I hit every chug hole. I hit every cow patty. I hit every, pillow that they've flopped down, and with no consideration for the drivability. So that's all I had to say.
I'll give you my word, I'll go out there and personally look at that. Oop. Ladies first.
Hi, I'm Pat Owen, 2413 Monticello Drive, and I've been here about 21 years. Since we're looking at this project between Town East and Town East and Forney, I hope no truck drivers are here, but I get very, very upset when I am trying to get to church or somewhere on time, and I come down out of my neighborhood onto Peachtree, and there's 2 trucks that are taking up all 3 lanes so they can turn to head toward LBJ. If we get this project done to where we're going to do this heavy-duty concrete stuff over here,
Yes, ma'am.
can we not tell these truck companies to not send their trucks? They can still get to the same place. Yeah, it might take them another 5 minutes, but that tears down the road over there. So eventually, our next project is going to be Town East from Gross Road to, Peachtree or whatever. It's an ongoing thing with the trucks. I know we need the industry to, help us grow, but can we kind of keep them over there and cars stay over here or something? Because it's really, and it's not just because I get upset because I'm late, but it's the fact that it tears down the road so bad.
There's no question. Trucks do the majority of the damage. I haven't verified this, but I've heard numbers like one truck is worth 3,000 vehicles. And if it's a fully loaded truck, that's probably pretty close. So we can look at taking things to council to designate truck routes and non-truck routes. The problem with that is if they're going to a destination, they do have the right to go on those roads, even if it's not a designated, if it's along the route to their destination. And then it's an enforcement issue. So certainly, I don't want the trucks on my roads any place except where they need to be, the heavier duty pavements. It's just a constant issue to try and enforce those type of regulations and train the truckers that come frequently to the city of Mesquite what's allowable and what's not. But that is a great suggestion.
I'm sorry. The last thing is this other gentleman just said about the filling in the potholes. Last week when we were having all those torrential rains, I got stuck in traffic coming from Galloway toward 80, and they were repairing potholes on the side coming from Old Mesquite toward 80. And I mean, it was pouring down rain, and they were out there pouring that asphalt stuff to kind of stop, and then the next car come around and pew. And when you drive over that stuff anyway, it kind of gets on your car. This was going 3 and 4 feet high in the air, and it was like, why are they doing this in the rain? Why don't they close down and go back to the shop and try again tomorrow when it's a little bit drier? I was just, I'm not a road person. I don't build roads. I don't want to build roads. But a little bit of common sense should go a long way.
But let me explain that to you. I understand, and believe me, they're frustrated too. The problem is when a bad pothole occurs, and it's reported, we literally have to act, because if a car goes through there and it's been reported and we haven't taken action, rain or shine, then the city has a liability and we can get claims against the city. Believe me, we'd rather not, because we know it's a futile exercise, but we have to respond to every reported pothole. It doesn't matter what type of weather. And so we attempt to do our best with the understanding it's probably not going to last very long, and we're going to be back again. But we have no choice from a liability and legal standpoint. If I could just wave them off and say, it's raining, guys, don't worry about it, we're going to do something else, they'd love for me to tell them that, and it would alleviate a lot of your frustration and ours.
Before I retired, I dealt with attorneys and court thing. I was in court all the time because I was in the insurance business and, big bad insurance companies. But does that defense really help you in court? Well, we got a complaint, but we were out there fixing that pothole. Never mind that we put it in, it came out. We put it in, it came out. Does that really help you in your defense?
It actually does. It means we were attempting.
Lawyers are still getting dumber. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got 758, real short comment, and then we're going to have to move on to the next one.
Charlie Baker, 1713 Huntington, 75149. And I just wanted to reiterate on the traffic congestion by narrowing the lanes would eventually create. And then once we restrict traffic flow there, they're going to start looking for cut-throughs. And as we all already know, they cut through on South Parkway on a regular basis. So try and keep that in mind if anybody's thinking about, it's going to be better if we make it traffic narrow down. The other thing I wanted to ask about, you've talked about Forney a lot, but I've heard no mention of any repairs to the Forney Road from Town East to South Parkway.
That is not on our schedule as far as overlaying it. Again, we'll keep up with the daily potholes and the reported maintenance issues out there, but at present, we don't have anything scheduled. That section of roadway has actually been designed at one point, way back in the 80s when I first got here. We actually got the plans on the shelf, but there's just not a lot of traffic
It's time to dust them off.
there's just, we have a lot of other needs is what, but I understand what you're saying. I'm going to close out. First of all, I want to thank everybody that stood up and in front of the mic and gave us your comments. We're going to take a short break, but before we do that, I'd like anybody who's going to leave, we're going to handle after the break. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to do a stopwatch type thing. There is restrooms right down this hall here for those that have to use restrooms. But do not leave this building before you get a copy of the survey. And there is places to vote for both Town East Boulevard, which we've discussed, and Skyline that we are going to discuss. And there is a stamped, addressed envelope, so you can get that back. Just if you don't want to take it, it is going to be online, and we will mail those to everybody in this neighborhood that received the original mailing as well. Okay, I want to, for those of you who are leaving, I can't thank you enough for coming here tonight and listening to this discussion and the presentation. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll jump on Skyline.